As you and or your team are out there making calls using PhoneBurner, it's going to be critical for you to be able to understand and be able to report on that activity. And that's what we're going to talk about on this specific training. We want to dive deep into the reporting. So in your account, you're going to click on the Reports tab up across the top there. That will take you to the main reports page in PhoneBurner. Now there are a lot of reporting options here at PhoneBurner, and so we're not going to be able to cover every single one of those in one specific training. And so I'm going to be talking about different reports that are available here in PhoneBurner. And this specific training, I'm going to be focused on the dial session report under the main reports tab. That is a standard report. So if you're on the reports page here, looking on the left-hand side, you'll see this option here called dial sessions. If we click on that, that'll take us to the standard report for dial sessions. It's going to list out you, and of course, if you're a team admin, you're going to see everybody on your team listed here as well. Once you've selected that report, over on the left-hand side, you'll see this option for date range. Let's go ahead and click on that. You can choose one of the preset options like today, yesterday, last week, Monday through Friday, last month, past 7 days, past 30 days, 60, 90, 120, 180, 365, month to date or year to date, and of course, a custom date range. Now, because this is a demo account and there's not a lot of real data in here, I'm actually going to go ahead and just choose something like the past 60 days. That should give me, a decent amount or at least some data that we can explore here in this report so I can talk to you about this specific report, because there's a lot of great information that you can gather from this specific standard report. So once we've selected the date range, now you'll see each user listed here, and you'll see how many dial sessions they did during that date range. So for example, me, the admin, I had 41 dial sessions during that date range. And during those dial sessions, I made 288 phone calls. I talked to 12 people. I talked for 4 minutes and 38 seconds, or rather had a conversation with my prospects for 4 minutes and 38 seconds. And I left 24 voicemails. And you're going to see that listed for each of your team members. Now, of course, if you're the only team member, obviously you're only going to see your information here. But you'll also notice that the numbers in the dial session column are all clickable. They are blue. So if I click on the 41 for Jeff Osnes, that will open up a new screen, or that'll drill down in a little bit further here and it'll give me more details. For example, it's going to tell me how many contacts were called versus how many contacts have been selected or added to dial sessions. I'm going to see the total calls, which we saw on the previous screen. We're going to see the duration of all of these dial sessions. So on the previous screen, we saw the talk time. So how much time did we talk to our prospects? This will show us the actual duration of all of these dial sessions. We'll see the live answers, again, the talk time, the average talk time, the emails that were sent during those dial sessions, and again, the voicemails that were left. And then below that, we're going to see each dial session listed out. In the first column there, you're going to see how you were connected to the dial session. Now you'll notice in my particular case, most of these are blank, and that's because I chose a number pool, and this is an older report, and so it doesn't bring number pool data into this as the connected as option. So you're only going to see the connected as when I actually selected a specific caller ID that was added to the caller ID library. Now, from here, we'll be able to see the date and time each of these sessions happened, the duration of that specific dial session, the contacts called versus the number of contacts selected, the calls made. Now, of course, contacts called and calls made are not always going to match, right? Because you can call a contact multiple times in a dial session. And you'll also see that some contacts get processed through a dial session, but not actually called. And so you might see a contact's number higher than the actual calls as well. So lots of variation there, but it gives you kind of a general census of what you said you were going to do when you started the session versus what you actually did, or if you're looking at a team member for them, right? And then we got calls, live answers, how many people actually picked up the phone that we talked to. And this specific number, the live answer number listed here, is based off of the disposition setting. So I'm going to open up another tab here, and we're going to go to dial session under settings. So we're going to go to the dial session settings, and we're going to go to dispositions, and we're just going to edit one of our dialing sets. It really doesn't matter because there's just one specific setting I want to point out here. So I'm going to take, for example, our no answer disposition. If we scroll down to the bottom of the settings for this disposition, you'll see this option for connected call. This is currently set to no, which means as me and my team call and use this specific disposition, the calls that result with no answer are going to be not counted as connected calls, which makes sense, right? If I click no answer, we should not consider that a connected call, regardless of what happens on the carrier side, right? So carriers may actually connect a call, but we mark it as no answer, and so we want to track it accordingly in this specific report. So some dispositions you create, you might want to set to yes, and some no. You have total control over that. By default, the system will configure all buttons in the dialing set to no and all buttons in the live answer set to yes, but you have control. All right, back to the report. So then we've got talk time. This talk time is specific to that specific dial session. So again, we had a bunch of dial sessions. I think it was 41 during this time frame, and each dial session had its own talk time, right? We got email sent, voicemails, recordings, so you can really see what happened on a per session basis. But you'll also see a button over on the right-hand side called Details. We can click on that, and that will allow us to drill down even further. So now we can look at this specific dial session. So the duration of that dial session, the contacts called versus the contacts selected, calls, live answers, all of those same great details. Plus, we're going to see every call that was done during that dial session and the result of that call. So we've got the call reference number, not super relevant for you in most cases, but for those of you who use the API, that might be relevant for you. You can see the number that was displayed to the contact when that call was made. You can see the name of the contact, the duration of that call, the result of the call, what disposition did we click on? Was an email sent? Was a voicemail left? And then, of course, the notes here. These are going to be the notes associated with this contact or this call. So here you can see I've got the first one listed here. He was actually not called during this dial session. He was skipped because he had a phone number or has a phone number that had a low connect score. So in this specific dial session, we are automatically skipping contacts with low connect scores. And then my next one, I see we booked an appointment, and I see the summary of that call, that AI summary. And then the final column here, I can listen to the recording. If you have call recording turned on, you can download the recording, and you could potentially delete the recording if you did not need it in the system anymore. Now, this is a hard delete. It's not a soft delete. So if you delete it, it's gone. Don't ask the team to recover it for you because we can't. With that being said, I do want to point out a few other things here. So now that we've kind of drilled down all the way, you'll see some options in the upper right-hand portion of each of these pages that we went through. This one, because we're down at the very bottom here, we have this export dial session drop-down menu with two options. We can export to CSV and exclude recordings, or we can export to zip and include recordings. So let's talk about those. I'm going to click on the export to CSV and exclude recordings. So if I click on that, that's going to give me a CSV file here, and it's going to list out every contact that was called, the duration of the call, the outcome of the call, the source of the contact of that call, right? So all of those details. Let me resize this. My goodness gracious. There we go. Now I can scroll around, and any custom fields related to that contact, the call date, the dial session, the date added, the phone number that was the caller ID, the notes, the dial session notes, right? So all of the specific information for each of those contacts, so that you can take that information and you can load it into any other software that you might have that you might be using for additional reporting, right? Because PhoneBurner can't anticipate how everybody might want to report on data, and so we have some general reports, which of course is what we're going through right now, and then you can of course export the data and then use that information in your own way. So that's this export. If we do the export dial session and include recordings, that's going to give us a zip file. In this particular case, it's going to give us that same CSV file that we exported earlier when we just did the CSV without recordings. So that information is exactly the same. The only difference is we're going to have the MP3 files for the recording. So you'll notice that it's recording and then it's got these numbers associated with it. That links it to the specific call that was made, right? So you'll be able to easily find the recording that matches the line item in the CSV file. We do that on purpose so that especially if you have a dial session with a lot of calls in it, you're gonna want to have that reference, right? In this particular case, I only have 3 recordings, and there's only 4 or 5 calls, so it would be really easy for me to kind of figure out which one goes to which. But just keep that in mind. We put in the title of the recording information to help you match the call recording MP3 to the line item in the Excel or CSV file. In fact, let me just open that up again. Here you'll see that's the contact ID. Let's do the call ID. Here you'll see the call IDs there, call IDs there. So very easy to match everything up. So let's go ahead and move that off the screen and then close that window here. All right, so that is exporting from the lowest level. Let's go ahead and move up. So we'll go to previous report. All right, so here you'll see there is another export drop-down menu. Same as before, export dial sessions, export zip file with recordings. Only in this particular case, the CSV file is going to contain a line item for every call in all of these dial sessions. And this zip file with recordings is going to contain the CSV of every call and every recording. So it's just like the previous one, the one we were doing at the specific dial session level, only this is going to be all of those dial sessions combined into one export. So really handy there. Now let's go ahead and go to the previous report. And I want to point out another button. This is the View Call List button. So remember, we've selected our date range. We're in the dial session standard report. We've got all of our team members here. So if I click on View Call List, that's going to take every call that was done by every team member and display it to me on this screen here. So here you'll see I've got on the left-hand side the user that made the call. So this was Heather S.A. The number that was displayed as the caller ID, the contact and phone number that was called, the duration of the call date and time, the result of the call, like what disposition did they click on, was an email sent, if so, what's the subject line, the voicemail, if a voicemail was left, notes about the call, contact added date, and the recording information. So as you can see, very similar to what we saw when we drilled down in. And what's cool about this is it's in chronological order. So you can start at the top and work your way down, and you can see exactly which contact was called and when and all of that across your entire team. So it's really kind of a cool way to look through your data. But you'll also notice here there's another export to CSV option. Let's go ahead and click on that. That's going to give us another CSV file. So let's click on that to open it up, because I want to point out some of the options that are available in this CSV. So again, we get to see what user made the phone call. So just like what we're seeing on the screen there. We see the first and last name of the contact that was called, the phone number that was called. We see the caller ID. What phone number did PhoneBurner display to that contact as the caller ID? That could be a phone number that is part of a number pool, something that you've purchased from PhoneBurner, or it could be a number that you've added to the system yourself. All of those will be displayed as the caller IDs listed here. You see the date of the call, you see the time of the call, you see the contact's local time, you see the duration of the call, you see the result of the call, you see their email, voicemail, so all of that stuff that we saw previously, but you also see whether or not it was a live answer, connected or not. So this is represented with zeros and ones. This is going to come in really handy for those of you who are trying to build out some custom reporting outside of PhoneBurner. You want to take data outside of PhoneBurner and put it somewhere else so you can really start to dig into those details. You'll have those ones and zeros. Now you could infer information about connected or not connected based off of the result, but this gives you very specific yes or no, connected or not connected. Then you've got the notes, and then you've got this column here for local ID. Now that's different than caller ID, right? Caller ID is any phone number that we displayed as a caller ID to the contact. Local ID is only the phone numbers that you own here at PhoneBurner. So if you're selecting a phone number at the start of the dial session that is one that you added to your caller ID library that came from outside of PhoneBurner, then it's not going to be listed here as a local ID number. This can really help you when you're trying to analyze your data for connection rates and live answer rates based off of phone numbers used. You can compare phone numbers purchased through PhoneBurner to phone numbers that you're using as caller IDs that came from outside of PhoneBurner. And then again, you've got all of the custom field information related to those records and so on and so forth. So lots of great information. I do want to point out that it's nice to have the time and the contact local time as separate items here, because that's going to help you build reports, again, outside of PhoneBurner, on what time is best to connect with people based off of their local time versus the time you or your team is making calls, right? And this is based off of your time zone, right? Your time zone settings in PhoneBurner. And then, of course, we've got date and time separated out, so it's just easy for you to import that information into another application, another program. So anyway, that is a quick little overview of the standard dial sessions report here in PhoneBurner. Lots of great information can be gathered from this specific report. So anyway, I hope you'll take advantage of this data and you'll use this to help you and your organization get more done and connect with more people using the power of PhoneBurner. Thanks again, and happy dialing.